Hello and welcome to the Drunkduck Quackcast. I'm Ozonation. With me is Baines and Tanserine. Hello.
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 And this is the Quackcast. Welcome to the Drunkduck Quackcast. This week we're going to be talking about it's a bit of a weird topic. We're talking about the character of Drunkduck and why it is what it is, basically. I think that's it, isn't it?
It's the DuckTales.
Yeah, the DuckTales.
Of the Drunkduck.
Exactly.
DuckTales.
So which character are you in the DuckTales?
Oh my goodness, I don't know.
I'd be
I haven't seen it for such a long time.
I'd be Launchpad McQuack, because that's who I always love.
Who would I have no idea who I'd be. Probably some guest duck of some sort.
Oh, you'd be Scrooge, obviously. That's you.
Obviously.
And Baines,
I would sour in coins and not be bruised.
Exactly. So. And Baines would be Gizmo. That's the character. That was the scientist one. None of these characters fit us. But yeah,
no.
The formation of Drunkduck and our character and the reason for our character. Well, we already talked about this in our bloody videocast, Patreon videocast. But yeah, let's see if we can go over it again for
And it did get bloody.
I'm sorry about that. I'm on a period, Baines. Come on now. Let me some slack. Okay, so God. But before we get into that, we've got to do our featured comic. So Quai's going to tell us about Harold. So Quai, tell us about Harold.
Hello, this is Quackcast, and the feature I've selected for this week is Harold by 0 Hour, and it is rated E for everyone. Meet Harold. Harold likes jam. Follow Harold off the page and into real-world places in search for jam. Observe Harold in many different rooms, climbing wooden stairs and crossing bridges. Harold brings a much cleverer perspective to the changing of surroundings while on an important mission for jam. Follow Harold to martial arts practice, clothes shopping sprees, the breakfast nook, and, if lucky, Harold will showcase the sports car exchanged for fine homemade jam. This is a photo comic made out of a mixture of techniques, including overlaying digital paint over a photograph. The plan is to find the jam and read Harold by 0 Hour, rated E.
And that was Quai with Harold. Thank you for that, Quai. So now we're introducing the featured music. Gummels has given us a theme to a comic called Magic Powerball. Magic Powerball. Intense driving action-oriented electronica that makes you want to dance. You'll want to bop and move to this track. It's a slow start, but it picks up the pace quickly and takes you along for the ride. So take it away, Gummels, with your theme to Magic Powerball. And that was Gun Wallace's theme to Magic Carpet Ride by Steppenwolf. No, that was Gun Wallace's theme to Magic Powerball, which is a comic by Gen Atu. It's rated E for everyone. Lovely manga style. So I hope you enjoy Gen Atu's Magic Powerball. Give that a look. Alright, so we're talking about our discussion topic today, which is the character of Drunkduck and why it is what it is. And this is a tricky one. I think originally I started talking about this in the forums, in the general discussion forum thread, because people were sort of talking about the differences between Comic Fury, which is another webcomic site that's quite popular, and Drunkduck, and why these differences in character exist or whatever. And I kind of went in a bit too much detail about why I think the differences, why they're there, and what the differences are. But it's interesting, just not talking about Comic Fury, but talking about Drunkduck and why we are what we are. And I think it really comes from how we were formed back in the day. So, of course, Drunkduck was formed in 2002. Way back in the bedrock era, the dinosaur era of the internet, at least as it involves webcomics, because webcomics weren't so much a thing. There were very, very few webcomics online back then. It was still the early days, not the big corporate way that it's all done these days. Very, very different.
Incredibly different world.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, back then it was quite strange, quite different. So the site was, of course, formed by Dylan Squires, known as Vault 6 or something. I can't remember his name on the site.
Yeah.
So
does he still show up as a friend for every member, or did we have to get rid of that because of some glitch?
There was a glitch,
Remember?
but I think Alexi might have fixed that. I don't know if he had to delete him from everywhere. He was going to do that, but I don't know. So yeah, he was he's everybody's friend. But yeah, he formed the site back in the day just as a kind of like a fun thing, because he was learning programming and server space was cheap, and he just wanted to do it. The site was named after a friend's duck who had died. But it looked dead. It looked drunk. No. It looks dead. I don't know. Whatever. This duck, it looked drunk, but it also died, and the site was called Drunkduck because of that duck. I don't know. He just called it that, which was a totally ridiculous thing, and it just became our name from then. So he created the site, and to begin with, he was like an older Gen Xer too. So Generation X, a bit older. So he had a different kind of culture from the younger Millennials and Gen Zers. So they're kind of, the powerhouse of the internet now. So there's very much that Gen Xer kind of way of thinking. And I suppose you characterize the Gen Xer way of thinking as a bit more open and accepting than a lot of the thinking styles now. And that's not because generationally we were just better or any kind of that bullshit. It's because people who are younger than Gen X were more likely to grow up with the internet in a much more influential way from a younger age. Not so much older millennials, but younger millennials, and especially Gen Zs. And very, very formative thing as part of that growing up experience is, of course, social media. And social media was way more of a thing for those younger generations than it was for Gen Xers. I mean, it didn't exist back then for Gen Xers. It had only just started to come in in 2006, 2007, or something like that. So in 2002, that wasn't.
I mean, even the, internet didn't exist for Gen Xers by and large.
Oh, not in the beginning, no, but it started in the 90s. So we had it for
Yeah, and then social media really is a few years later before it's like social media, and then the rampant. So I mean, to be surrounded by that from the time you're a kid,
Yeah, to grow up with
it's
it.
going to change. Not to say that every person is this or that, of course.
No.
I know you're not saying that, but the culture is. I mean, it's just so different. Like everyone's always online now, no matter what your age, for the most part. Like it's 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
It's sort of like
And
social media.
one of the main things about social media, of course, isn't just that it exists. It's that it's run by artificial intelligence algorithms that prioritize engagement above everything else. And what keeps people engaged is things that keep them outraged. And so it's known for not only increasing the amount of outrage you feel by ramping up outrage constantly, by always showing you things that will give you a reaction and showing you something that will give you even more of a reaction, but also isolating you within bubbles of people who think the same. So it increases partisanship and it increases tribalism by forcing people of, like-minded thinking together, and whenever it shows you the opposing point of view, it shows you an extreme sort of cartoonized version of that point of view in order to make you hate it. Because if you hate it, you'll react more and you'll be more likely to engage with the system, so you'll stay on there for longer. So it's not doing that deliberately. It's not doing that in some kind of evil-minded, like, scheming way of, some tech bros going, yes, haha, this is how we'll do it. It's just that's the way the system is set up, and it automatically does this because that's a really stupid way to set up a system. But that influences the way the culture forms and the way people think. So people have become more tribal, and they have become more partisan, more political in a way, because they judge everything as being more kind of extreme in their political ideas of stuff. There's no longer that kind of broad, neutral sort of default setting that we would have had, these older Gen Xers or younger Gen Xers as well. When the Gen Xers were kind of like came to the internet, we had more of a neutrality to the way we thought of things. We still would react to extreme ideas, but because we weren't being influenced by this social media algorithm setup, we weren't being turned into extremists. So that wasn't part of our culture. So that is a massive influence on the way Drunkduck was formed. We have this neutrality because of, Volt was part of that generation. And, okay, so we missed out a step here. We've got other people who came along to be admins. So what Volt did was he contacted a bunch of popular webcomicers who were out there, who were just sort of beginning and managing things for themselves, and he offered a better place for them. So Drunkduck was somewhere where he would be managing like everything, like comments for people's pages and, regular updates, and they could queue updates, and like he could bring in extra readers for them. So it was a worthwhile thing for them to come and host on Drunkduck. So that was Chuck and Steve Rowles, also known as Spang and Ronson. Black Kitty came along as well, and School Monkey. So Chuck and Steve, Spang and Ronson are based in the US. Black Kitty, she was based in Canada, and School Monkey, she was an American, but she moved to Manchester or something like that, Birmingham, I'm not sure. So yeah, she moved to the UK. So these people were all Gen Xers. All that group were culturally Gen Xers, generationally Gen Xers, I suppose, and they're all all of that kind of similar age. And so that had a massive influence on the character of the website and how we were formed. So these guys all had really good comics.
I think also
I was just going to say they had really good comics that were popular in their own right, and they came to manage Drunkduck, and they got themselves massive followings. But they were very accepting of everyone else's work. It didn't matter what level you were. They were open to reading your work and looking at it, and they didn't judge anyone, and they didn't sort of think of themselves, oh, we're the admins, so you guys are below us, whatever. Like, maybe we'll talk to you, maybe we won't.
Yeah.
They absolutely weren't like that at all. They were just part of the community. Anyway, sorry, Tance, you were going to say something.
No, absolutely. And they made you feel like you were among equals, I would say, in the sense, equals in what sense? We are both artists. They are advanced, I'm a beginner, but we are both artists, and you felt included. That was the big issue. You felt that it was a very inclusive community. It wasn't. I never felt that anything was sugar-coated. Nobody had delusions of grandeur, like drawing a stick figure and feeling they created the Mona Lisa. But it felt like, okay, I will get there. And I have all these people that have more experience than me helping me and giving me, giving me their shoulders to stand on, in a sense. And that was an amazing feeling of safety, at least for me. Because when I joined, and I had no idea what I was doing, like at all. I had no idea what a webcomic was. I had no idea what a comic was, even though I was always reading comics and stuff. When I started creating mine, it was all over the place. Like it was wrong. Everything was wrong. All of it.
A lot of us were. Yeah. They welcomed us to the site. They welcomed everybody, and they would personally look at your work.
And I remember, I think, I don't remember exactly whose comment it was. It could even have been like Gin Joke or someone, or maybe someone else. I don't remember exactly whose it was, but I remember what they said. It was in the beginning pages of Wolf. I was making that at the time. And he said, streamline your panels a little bit, give it some backgrounds, and keep your characters consistent, and you've got a hit. And that was amazing, because you couldn't get, like, this is the epitome of a constructive comment. It just gave me this fervor, this flame of needing to, okay, I will do that because I have something that is worth a while, and someone with a lot of art chops told me so. So, and they had no obligation to say this to me. So it must be objective. So,
and so the site back then really encouraged. Not only was the character of people encouraging this, but the design of the site as well encouraged this sort of egalitarianism and the community. Because we were really known for our community back then.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we would be accepting of everybody's ideas in the forums. There'd be a lot of discussion, and people wouldn't be kind of extreme in their political ideas, or, you know, even if people did sort of like veer off to their like extremes in their ideas and stuff like that, they wouldn't express it that way, and we would be accepting of people regardless, and they wouldn't be dicks about their things, and they would be open to like communication. They'd be open to change, which is a very different thing from how it is now. But the site itself encouraged community, because we'd have things like the coins that you'd get given, and you could spend those on the site, and you could get things, and you could gamble them and that kind of stuff, and people would donate stuff to the site, which would be available if you've got a bunch of coins, and you could get this program for drawing, or you could get like a comic or something like that, like a hard version of a comic. A whole lot of fantastic.
Those early crypto.
Yes.
We were ahead of the times.
But,
I have to say for this, though, I mean, I think that at the time, people were not as radicalized as they are now. That was like, I genuinely don't remember anyone supporting some ideas that are extremist now.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't remember that. So people were not that radicalized in the first place, and we also didn't take ourselves as seriously.
No.
What do we mean by this? You could stand to be like you could stand to take some criticism about you, but in a sense, I don't know exactly how to describe it, but we really didn't feel fragile enough that anyone that challenged us was immediately the enemy. So at least that's how it felt to
Well, they
me.
weren't.
And
they could have been an enemy in like a personal enemy, but we wouldn't think of them as being part of an enemy. Like, oh, you're the other side from us. But we did.
Yeah, or you're the secret cabal that is the.
Like the tribalist enemy.
Mm-hmm.
We did kind of mention that just briefly in that people have been, because of social media and the way the algorithms encourage people to take extremist positions and to be trapped in social bubbles. So yeah, that is probably the biggest factor behind that. But yeah, anyway, go on.
Wait, I still stick on the whole, we didn't take ourselves seriously as much, because if someone said something like really weirdly like extreme or off the rails, the first thing that you thought was that they are joking. Like the first thing was like, so okay, see, here is a dude that is just joking, basically.
Taking a hyperbolic approach, to make a point.
Yeah, at best. So, like most of it was like, okay, we have devolved into joke areas now. Okay, fine. It was like that. And remember, we had the top drawer, which was, I think, the times warranted and could take having the top drawer. And the top drawer was a sub forum in the forums where everyone was their worst.
We're
everyone was
getting a little bit ahead of ourselves here in the formation.
Are we? Okay.
So
sorry.
So yeah, we started out like with a lot of as the site was kind of building up popularity, and we're getting more and more people, and the communication was getting bigger and bigger and more furious. Almost, more the pace was getting faster. So we had one of the main things was, of course, comments on the site, which was a fantastic feature. We had also the rating system, so you could rate from 1 to 5, but because the rating affected your ability to show up on the front page, and you could be in like the top 10 comics or something like that, but you couldn't appear in the top 10 if your rating fell below 5. So we had this like unwritten rule, this kind of self-enforced culture of only rating people 5, so we would knock them off the front page. So that was a part of a thing with the site. And if anyone rated someone below 5, they were seen as being a dick. They like to see themselves as being, I'm just being just honest, or just being I'm accurately rating you. We wouldn't see it as accurately rating, because it formed the real function of knocking someone off the front page. That was a key promotional feature. So you were just a dick for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So that was evolved into being one of the main kind of rules on the site. You weren't restricted from saying what you want to say. You were restricted about if you were being a dick. So that was the most important rule on the site. Don't be a dick. Don't make life bad for other people. So this ties into what you're saying with the top drawer. So, but eventually, the communication got so fast and so much. It was such a critical mass that we had to split the forums up. and split it up more and more and have these little sub-forums and stuff like that. And, there was game forums, there was the debate and discussion forum, which a lot of us enjoyed. I eventually got... I wasn't like an admin back then. I got made a moderator of one of these forums. And I used to have a lot of fun being a moderator. And, because I loved it. I loved being part of the website and making things go. And, so I was a moderator for a while. And I sort of moved around moderating all different parts of the forums and helping out managing stuff. And then we had, like Talents mentioned, we had the thing called the top drawer. So the top drawer had always been there, but it had been for throwing away crap. So if a thread started to go crap, then it'd get chucked in the top drawer. If it didn't fit anywhere else, it'd get stuck in the top drawer. But some clever people looked at that and thought, hang on, we can all look in the top drawer. We can actually make posts in here. And no one else is looking at it. There's no official moderator on the top drawer. There's an official moderator on everywhere else. But there's not on the top drawer. No one's listed as being the moderator. So this is an unmoderated section. It doesn't have any rules on it. So this is like international waters. We can do what we want here. That was a clever little loophole that they discovered. And so, there was a couple of people who went in there and started messing around and having little games, and a couple more of us. And so, I became part of that, and a few more people became part of that, and we started having clever games, and we would influence each other and egg each other on and have these, bizarre games and bizarre, things like collaborative experiences that we do, like drawing up artwork for all kinds of weird games and teasing each other and just having all these wild adventures and stuff like that in that forum. And sometimes the weird, silly stuff we would do would get a bit bigger, and would go outside, and people would take their game to the actual comics on the site, or take it through to the other parts of the forum and be disruptive. And this started to get so bad and so disruptive that eventually it had to be moderated. And there was a gang of people who were really hated moderation and hated the rule about not being a dick. And this created a knot of antisocial behavior. So these people wouldn't only dislike not being a dick, they would actually actively want to be dicks. And they would work out ways of they would sort of set themselves up as antagonists to the admins on the site and the moderators, and they would continually try and get around them and try and be, dicks to other people in different and creative ways. And unfortunately, that meant that the paradise that the top door was no longer a paradise, because it had to be moderated to stop that behavior. So it was self-defeating. These were the guys who ate the apple, so to speak. So paradise was ruined.
Ate all the apples.
Yes, ate all the apples and crapped them out everywhere else. So started throwing the crap at each other, and that's what happened. And that was an interesting kind of social situation, a social experiment, because that created this weird dickish gang, and this also had followers, people who would want to be part of the dickish gang but couldn't be, and they would have their own little under dickish gangs. So they weren't part of the main dickish gang, but they were part of their own little dickish gang, and so they were wannabes. And there was a few levels to this, and this fellow called he was Poison Ivy. He was called Poison Ivy or Poison Ivy. He joined, and he was under. So he was not part of any of these dickish groups. He was a wannabe, wanted to be part of them, but was never part of them. He was just a dick, and
injecting his poison into
that's exactly it.
Yeah.
Injecting, yeah. Because no one really wanted him to be. He was never really part of any of those groups. But he was being a dick and, messing around and doing crap, and eventually fell afoul of what the admins were doing, or the moderators, and he got himself some temporary bans, got told off, and he might have got permanently banned. I don't know, because I wasn't an admin at that stage. So I think he probably did. So yeah, Poison Ivy got kicked out, which was something that would happen if you were really, really bad. We didn't like to kick people out of the site. We really didn't like to do that. Like, people would have temporary bans for bad behavior, but like permanent bans was something that was a rare, and that was a special punishment, and admins would discuss it and really wouldn't like to do that to people.
Last resort.
Exactly. Last resort. So that was done, I think that was done to him. And he came back. He had programming skills, hacking skills, like traditional bad black hat hacking. And he came back and he hacked the site. And when all the admins were asleep, there were no admins on the site at all. Because, yeah, they were based in North America and Britain. So it was just a time when they're all asleep. But the Subcultured and I, we were the two main moderators, we were awake and we were managing the site. We were witnessing what was happening. And yeah, so Poison Ivy came and he actually hacked the site and started, like, he got admin credentials, and then he started like impersonating admins and writing like rude, horrible, disgusting things, started deleting people's accounts and deleting stuff from the site. And it was just really like mega dickish kind of stuff. I don't know whether this was like in revenge for being banned or he just wanted to be a dick. But yeah, he was creating damage. So Subcultured and I had to like observe and report, because we didn't have any ability to like manage this or combat it. So all we could do was like observe everything and like try and get Vault online again. And we did. And we were able to to get him online and tell him everything that happened, like tell him the steps that things happened in, and he was able to quickly reverse all the issues and like stem all the damage and patch up all the holes that Poison Ivy had used to get in. And because of that, I got made an administrator as well. So that must have been like 2005, I think, like 2005, something like that, or maybe 2006.
2005 for sure.
Something.
Because when I joined, you were already an admin, and I joined late 2005.
Okay.
So.
All right. So yeah. So that kind of period, and yeah, so I got made an admin and started being able to like extend the watch hours of the site. So we had like 360 degree, well, not protection, but 360 degree kind of like admins on the site to manage things and to try and solve any issues or problems. And that worked a lot better. So yeah, I joined the admin team with all the other guys, and it was really cool. And that was the death of the fun top drawer. No longer was it fun anymore because it had to be managed.
Yeah.
And the character of the site changed. And then, of course, something there were a couple of things that happened to the site. It had one massive, all the comics were deleted at one stage. Not all of them, but all the ones that didn't actually pay for some sort of special membership abilities. And this just meant that you didn't have to keep updating your site in order for your comic to be on. If your comic didn't get updated for a month or something like that, it would get automatically deleted in order to save space. Because back then, space was a premium. Hosting space was so expensive. So into the beginning of 2004, everyone's comic got deleted except for people who paid for the platinum status, which was not related to platinum comics. It was a different thing. They all got deleted, so that was a big problem because there was a bug in the system, and a lot of people had to start again in 2004. And that's when I had joined in 2003, but I probably started PKTA in 2004. But then we had another massive issue where all our server stuff got deleted in 2006, I think it was. because the server people were like subcontracted of some subcontracted, and they didn't pay their bills, and they just deleted everything, and there was nothing we could do. We couldn't contact the guy who who had subcontracted that we were paying, because he just wasn't answering his phone. So Drunkduck was totally disappeared from the internet, but Vault came back on. Restarted everything and made it all from scratch, which was fantastic. And actually, I think I became an admin in 2006 sometime, or 2005. I was an operator in 2000. Yeah, 2005. Yeah.
Then I joined. Yeah.
Okay. So the website got recreated.
Okay, go on.
Okay. Website got recreated in 2006, and there were a whole lot of changes. That's when we had the stuff with the awards you were talking about, Tans.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we were able to have these little badges, which was a fantastic thing. So like if you had a comic page, a friend, if you'd customized your profile, you'd have all kinds of badges and stuff like that. So we were way back early in before like Facebook or anything. I mean, we existed before Facebook was around, of course.
Yeah.
But before social media started with all this kind of encouraging you with badges and stuff, we were doing that before they existed, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and some badges were like real badges. Like anyone that had that in their profile was like had a bit of bragging rights. Like if you had 100 pages badge, or how many, I don't remember how many posts were the prestigious badge, but you had certain badges that felt significant, like a milestone for you, and made you more of a veteran in the site than others. So they were pretty important without making people feel bad. Like you just wanted to earn yours, is what I'm saying. So it motivated.
Exactly. It wasn't a case of these badges being unattainable, because a lot of awards that people get, you think, oh my God, those are fantastic, but that's actually unattainable for anyone but that person because of certain reasons or luck. So no one can get there. But for these awards, you can get there if you apply yourself. Yeah. For most of them, which was good. Yeah. Being like featured is not something you could easily get, because that's for our outside factors, because someone has to feature you to get that award. But that's just one of the many awards you could get. Most of them were things that you could earn yourself, like pages.
Amount of posts in the forum also had the badges.
Exactly. So those were great kind of things that increased people's engagement with the site in a positive way. So yeah, that was a great little thing that Vault Dylan introduced. And then of course, tied into all this, we were bought out by this company, Platinum Comics back then. That's what they were. So yeah, that was a major American media publishing company, like proper media, like movies, TV shows, all this kind of stuff. And they were using Drunkduck as a way of promoting their media, like IPs and things like that, as well as getting other comics, like other major comic kind of publishing companies on board, like Top Cow, I think, and others.
Yeah.
And there were like Witchblade. There was that posted on Drunkduck.
Oh my God, yes.
All kinds of things.
I remember also there was because I was there in the before quote unquote era, there was this huge influx of people that were hoping that their comics would be picked up for a movie. And
yes. Oh, we had hundreds of people, thousands of people coming on for that. The site was massive.
and that's when we had the first real, in my opinion, I mean, in my experience, the first real start of like friction and competition, like, you know, elbowing each other, like, no, I'll get picked, and you know, that sort of feeling. But really, again, it was only for the people that were only interested in getting their comic made into a movie, even more than the comic itself. Like, oh, I want a movie, you know, I'll do anything for a movie. It wasn't really like, oh, I have this amazing concept, and it would be nice if it was made into a movie, but I'm really here just to make my art. So again, there was like a two speeds of Drunkduck, like the old guard sort of, and the new people that were very like corporate.
Yeah, it was an interesting time.
Yeah.
Very interesting. And you did have, because the way Platinum managed things, you did have like proper professionals on the site that were only there because they were part of these Top Cow, things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a very weird thing. So they weren't part of the culture.
No.
At all.
And they never really showed in the forums or anything. They had their comics there.
So this was a lot of Gen Xers and a lot of older millennials. That was who made up this group. The older millennials and younger Gen Xers. So that was mainly who that stuff. You know, Gen Zers were still too young to really like be part of. Even if they were joining a site, they were still not really old enough to be part of the community. So yeah, that was very, very.
But still, during that period, we didn't really have people being like the culture of "don't be a dick" preserved through this. We just had some people who were more competitive and more like movie oriented, like, at least as far as I recall.
Oh yeah, and there were still people who were like would be a dick, but not culturally be dicks.
Yeah.
So in that you wouldn't have a lot of people doing that, just be these problematic individuals, and there were some really weird, nasty, problematic individuals, but we looked at them as being just oddities.
Yeah, outliers, basically.
Exactly. Yeah, just weird little people in their own right.
And yet you have me on the show, and I thank you for it.
Tolerated you ever since, Baines.
If only, Baines, that was the level of abrasion we had, we would be still in paradise, I suppose. So.
What time range are we talking about here? This is probably still before I joined.
Yeah, 2008.
This was
2008, 2009, around that.
Exactly, 2008, 2009. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And then we had the YO thing.
Well, all right. This was interesting. This is really confusing too. So yeah, Platinum was managing us, and they were doing well, but they were a bit like split and weird, and things weren't really going well with that company. And there were financial difficulties because they were trying to produce Cowboys and Aliens, the movie, at the same time, and promoting that through the site. That was a comic on Drunkduck. And so then, like, because of financial issues, they could no longer, like, afford to have Drunkduck as part of themselves anymore. So they divested that to Wowio. So Wowio bought us. So Wowio was founded by Brian Altoinian, who was also part of Platinum Comics, but he sort of split off from Platinum Comics to form Wowio, which was like a publishing company, a web publishing company, a comic publishing company, rather than a movie production thing. So it was a very, very different thing. So now, Drunkduck is owned by Wowio, whole different thing. Brian Altonian's the manager. He can get money into us in different ways. And that created this whole thing where we were going to have this whole redesign. And it's going to be new, but he also was like a bit scatterbrained and wanted to do this thing with this thing called WeVault. That was another, like Drunkduck, but more complicated, run by these two former Drunkduckers, Matt something or other, and Matt. Well, that's a dead name now, so her name is Maddie now, because Matt transitioned to Maddie, and I can't remember the other fellow, but he was Australian. And they were running WeVault.
The Australian guy.
Yeah. So the Australian guy and Maddie, who has transitioned, so they were the ones who created WeVault, and that was Brian's sort of passions was split between Drunkduck and WeVault, and which was going to be the main comic site. So things were always a bit strange and a bit weird, and eventually that got a bit too complicated and got a bit too weird and wasn't running well, so Drunkduck kind of won out. Mm-hmm. And we started to get the resources, and everything was going to be redesigned. We were going to be better than ever, and it was really going to take off, and it was going to be incredible. And then a global financial crisis hit, and everything collapsed. The site was sort of like half done and didn't get finished, and there were bugs and all this kind of crap. And all the other admins who had been around, they had started to leave because they didn't really like the corporate nature of things and the way stuff wasn't being supported and things weren't really going, all the way through. Mm-hmm. So Chuck, Ronson and Spang left, and then Black Kitty, and eventually there was just School Monkey and me were the only two admins left. And the site kind of limped along for a while, and it was sort of getting better and worse. But then eventually we had the big disaster, which was in 2011, I think, something like 2011, I think.
I think it was like around there.
That was when the site died completely, like cut off at the knees because poor management by the guys who was kind of left in charge, not Brian, but the people who he had managing the site, just really poor management, and the site was dead and killed. But not only killed like before, like it had happened in 2006, like just dead for a few like days or weeks. This is in 2011 or 2012. I think 2011. The site was killed for months. It was so dead. There wasn't anything left of the site. We had to get it reconstructed from like primordial atoms. Mm-hmm. We had to bring it back together. This was split into pieces. This was like just flattened. So yeah, it was a really hard battle to get it back together. And School Monkey, like, she didn't stick around. She left. I don't think she stuck around for the rebuild. I think she probably left before that because of problems with Platinum and Wowio. So it's just me, and I had a lot of help from people like Just No Cause.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was like the Duracell bunny in certain areas. Like he helped and helped and helped and helped. So
fantastic coding knowledge that couldn't have done it without him. I contacted all the old like Wowio and Platinum programming staff. Lawrence Leach, who was the guy who was doing the redesign of the site, he was our main programmer. He was able to give me a bit of help, and other people on other websites were able to give us help, and we were able to get ourselves like back online. One interesting thing was by that stage, this website, what was it called? Comic Fury had just been started up. Now, Comic Fury was, of course, created by a fellow who used to be known as Poison Ivy. And he is now known as Caillou. So Caillou by that stage had reformed. He was no longer like the dick that he was. He'd grown up, done a lot of growing up, as you do when you're younger. You grow kind of faster when you're in those young ages than you do when you're grown up. So he grew up quite fast, and he matured and formed and created Comic Fury totally based on Drunkduck. Did not use any of the same coding, I think. I mean, maybe like in the back of his head, he would have been thinking like maybe coding because he'd seen some of ours, but you don't have to use the same coding to make a website, a comic hosting website, because it's a pretty easy thing to do. I mean, it's not easy, but conceptually there are a lot of different ways to do it. It's like making a car. So yeah, he put that site together, but he based it on Drunkduck in the form. Like, had like, because the form was the same, like with the forums and all this kind of setting up. And because it was very similar to Drunkduck, it offered a great safe harbor to all these people who had their comics destroyed by this mess up. They just naturally went over to Comic Fury. So Comic Fury is formed by Caillou, was a millennial, had grown up in very different kind of circumstances, different ways of thinking, different kind of social ideas, and a lot of the people that really, really went across and found a good home on Comic Fury were the younger members of the site. So the younger millennials, people who had joined us and were having a good time, but then they got nowhere to go, but they still had that same level of enthusiasm and they wanted to keep that going. So they went and they found a great home at Comic Fury. The Gen Xers, I think some of them went over there too, but a lot of people went over to Smack Jeeves or Comic Genesis, or tried to do their own websites. A lot of them tried to do that, and no, very, very, very few have survived. But yeah, a few went up to DeviantArt, stuff like that. But when we finally were able to get back online again, and finally were able to get people to come back to us, most of the people that came back to us were our older Gen Xers. Not older, but Gen Xers and older millennials, because they had more loyalty to us. The younger ones, the younger millennials, were more likely to stay with Comic Fury because they had more culturally in common with that younger group. But also they had, their loyalty drive had sort of been on that stage when, they were able to build a massive home over there and they didn't have that loyalty to us to begin with. So whatever, they were able to have that on Comic Fury, so it was good for them. But that creates a massive social differences between us, because we are an older generational site with these more accepting, open ideas. They're a younger generational site with that younger way of growing up, with that tribalism, with that partisanship that people have because of social media, growing up with social media, that I think they call it native people who are native to the internet. So these people who are native to the internet, that is what made up that group. And since then, they've massively been attractive to those younger and younger people, especially younger millennials and stuff like that. Drunkduck has been, yes, we're still we're an old codger of a website run by old codgers with old codger ways of thinking.
Yeah.
And we appeal to other people who also have this, old, who are younger. We have younger millennials and all kinds of things. We've got people whole families, generations have literally used our site. We've had people who started on our site, they got married and they had kids, and their kids are using our site. This happens.
It's amazing.
Because we've been around so bloody long. And yeah, a lot of these people do think like us, or they don't have that extremist kind of point of views. And those people find a good home on the site because we don't support
gatekeeping.
we aren't a good support, for gatekeeping or extremist ideas, or alienating people because of not going along with extremist ideas.
It is a thing that we have a very upstanding and supportive users on the site that were banned on Comic Fury for some reason. And I honestly can't imagine why they would have been considering seeing how they act on our site, at least. So
these are cultural differences. I think what would be seen as extremist points of view on something like Comic Fury, and I'm not singling out Comic Fury as some they're not accepting, they have extremist ideas, whatever. I'm just saying there's generational.
Yeah, they have different approaches in moderating interactions, and that's fine. I mean, it's okay.
And they're fine for doing it. There's no problem at all, and it's like that all over the internet.
We have to also mention, because Comic Fury, I think, is like a stepping stone from us. Like if we are the classic punk rock, they are more transitional into whatever the modern thing is, with the modern webtoon kind of sites that are a lot more stringent in what they require, and how you can get in the front page, and how they can promote you, or when you are a bit like a pariah or whatever. So there's that.
I agree with that. The other factor is that, as you're saying, the other sites, like Webtoon and Tapas, they have a very they're stringent. They have a commercial culture, and because they're commercial, they have different rules that people have to stick to in order to be on brand, so to speak. And that's the thing. And you notice when you go to those sites, there is a brand look to them. I'm not saying bland, I'm saying brand. So, but Comic Fury has that, like you say, is a transitional way, because they're having a cultural brand, a social brand you have to stick to. They don't have commercial rules, but you still have to sort of fit in with the community in order to be part of it.
Yeah. So, they are less, I would say, they are less diverse not in content. I'm pretty sure that maybe in content as well. I don't know. Last time I was there, because I haven't been there for a good while. In fact, I used to mirror my comics in Tapas as well, because after the whole thing that happened that you described, with the complete deletion of the comics and everything, I developed this need to have as many mirrors as possible. So I also have one in Comic Fury, and I have one. I had one in Tapas, and I say had because for Without Moonlight, in Tapas, I didn't bother to upload it to the end. Like the comic is finished, and in Tapas it is half done, so that's how long I haven't been there. But for the while I was there, there might be some change happening now. But for the while I was there was this feeling of, if you didn't do a certain type of theme, a certain type of art style, and a certain type of format, you wouldn't be fast-tracked to any kind of showcase. Let's put it that way.
There was always that. Sites seemed to have a character that was, and often it wasn't a planned thing. It was just, this kind of stuff's popular, so I'll join this site because that's good for my work, because I sort of do this as well. And then it attracts a critical mass, and then that becomes the character of the site. This almost happened to Drunkduck a few times, because we had a lot of Sprite comics.
Yeah.
And there was a massive amount of Sprite comics on the site. And it was just because there was a lot of people of a certain age, and this would have probably been the younger millennials at that point, who were culturally like they knew each other from school, and they were doing these comics as a way of social communication with each other.
Most were fan art as well. They were fan comics.
Yeah, they all stolen artwork, but they had the characters would be based often on their friends. So, so many of them would do that, and then they'd get really angry because, you've just used my sprites but recolored them, and you've used my sprites but recolored them, but really they're just like Mario and whatever.
I remember in the awards at some point we did have a category Best Sprite Comic.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, and that is valid because there was another thing that people thought of as sprite comics, and they called them sprite comics because that was a name, but they weren't. It was pixel art, and this was people creating artwork that looked like it was sprites, but with their own custom pixel art, and it was called sprite comics. Yeah, so that was the only time that sprites comics could be featured on the site because they weren't copyright artwork. This was original stuff. So yeah, there was all kind of branches to it and stuff like that.
This must be around the era. I think I maybe signed up in 2009, but I didn't post comics until I think 2011. And I remember reading about, I was looking around for where to post comics because I wanted to make a comic, and reading about Drunkduck, I remember reading people saying, yes, your comic will be stolen. People will steal your artwork. And this must be what we're talking about. And I was like, but if you want to be read, like people will read your comic. If it's on the Duck, people will read it. You'll get comments. I think people said that. Like,
wow.
So that was what I read. I don't know how old this commentary was that I read. I don't even remember where I read that, but that was to me. I was like, okay, well, yeah, I want to try, and it'd be great to have people reading it. That'll give me energy to keep going. So that's kind of what led me to join the Duck after all this amazing stuff happened.
Interesting. And not long after that, you had a role in doing that.
It was
the Quackcast.
Ridiculously quickly after that, for some reason.
Yeah, because Skull Monkey and I were doing it independently. Because we only did the Quackcast because Platinum or Wowio wanted us to do a Quackcast.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved it. Loved the Quackcast.
Yeah. Actually, it was a video cast originally. That's what they wanted us to do. We were going to do a web series. So we were going to do video. But Skull Monkey was embarrassed about she just didn't want to be on the camera. So that idea was squashed. And then we had to do a podcast. And so we had to learn how to do all that. And then when Baines, you loved it. You were like a big fan. And then Wowio wasn't supporting us anymore. But we wanted to keep up the podcast because it was like a regular thing and it was a face of the site and it was our ability to talk to people. So we wanted to maintain that level of continuity. So we were still managing it and still just scraping by, working out how to edit it, and we really didn't know what we were doing. Skull Monkey was kind of doing it. And then I had to do it when she started to leave and didn't want to do it anymore. And I could barely manage, but I couldn't. So I asked you to come along, and you started.
Oh, yeah. I don't know how long that
was awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you edited quite a few, like maybe 60 or something like that. And you had your own style of editing, which was cool. And then you couldn't obviously keep on with that. But so I had transitioned you to actually being on the Quackcast, and then I took over editing instead.
Okay.
And so it was the Baines and Ozone show.
And oh my God, that was amazing.
We Bozo. And then we had Pitface guesting on a few times. Like, for some reason she was just guesting. And then she said, I want to bring my friend Tance on. And then Tance and Pip guested a few times. And then suddenly it was the Tance Baines
the
and Pit
longest,
Face
like
show
we went,
for so
like as a
long.
quartet, we went for a while.
Long one.
We went for ages. It was a full quartet, and there would be times when like Baines couldn't be on, or Pitt couldn't be on, Tance couldn't be on, so we kind of rotated a bit. But we have times when we'd all be together, which was great. So it was a quartet. But eventually, Pitt had had other things. Life had taken over. Like, I mean, all of us. I mean, like me, because I've always been like the main. Because I do the editing and recording and stuff like that. So I've always had to be here. But all of you guys have had different stages where you've had to sort of take a break for a while. And yeah, we've sort of managed fine. And it's been good. But yeah, Pitface finally had to really take a complete break because things are kind of moving in a different direction for her. But yeah, we've managed this as an incredible piece of continuity for years now.
And that, I mean,
All this
not
time.
to jinx it, like I don't know, touch wood or whatever it
Oh,
is
yeah.
you have. But it feels like it still has a lot of life in it. I mean, I enjoy it every week. It is a fun thing to do, and especially in this day and age where there is so much dark in the world, it is very, very refreshing to have like this little window of talking about constructive things and things that add to human existence in any way, rather than things that take away from it. And for me, at least, it is like a breath of fresh air every time. So,
That's good. But I mean, getting back to this formative idea of the culture, I think that has stayed with us, even though we've had the changes and had new people join at various stages or whatever. We've still stayed with our culture being like accepting and neutral in a lot of ways, which ironically some people have found, especially the younger generation, have found they've interpreted that as being negative, as being hostile at some points. Yeah, because there's the whole idea, if you're not for us, you're against us. So if we host like people, like some of our like older users, like are seen as being a bit more I don't know, old-fashioned in their ideas, and because of that, they have the impression that the site is like hostile to them, where it's not. It's just like we are accepting of him as we're accepting of you. He's not against you. He's just more old-fashioned in his approach, and we don't interpret that as being against you.
If you live and let live,
whatever,
we don't bother you. That's basically it. I would say.
Exactly. We don't have a thing against people because of political ideas. We have a thing against people because of personal approaches. So if you're actively a dick to people, then you're not welcome in the site. We don't want you. But if you just happen to be a Republican or a Democrat, these are American political parties, or you happen to be more conservative or more liberal in your ideals or communist or whatever, that's not a thing. You can be communist, you can be religious, you can be a Muslim or a
Hindu,
or I don't know,
Zoroastrian. We have a lot of
Zoroastrian. You could be a Catholic or a Protestant or whatever. That's all acceptable. You could be against evolution. I mean, like I'm scientific in my thinking. I'm skeptical in my approach. But if someone was against evolution, that's fine for them to be part of the site.
As long as they don't preach.
As long as they're not a dick about it.
When I say as long as they don't preach, like when I was growing up, not only in my country, but generally, I mean, also from from the culture, like my parents spent a good few years abroad in Canada. That's why I happen to be a Canadian citizen as well. There was this general zeitgeist, if you like, of don't catechize me, don't preach to me. If I'm interested, I'll come to you. And, believe what you want to believe, but keep it in your own lane. So, and that was a general thing. I don't know if you guys had this experience growing up.
Yeah, that was Australian thinking as well. You could be whatever religion you wanted to be, but we did not like born again or evangelicals, that sort of stuff that we're all about.
Yeah, proselytizing. And not just for religion, for pretty much anything. Like, you want to tell me about your nativist ideas, or you want to tell me about, I don't know, I'm going through a Rolodex now thing, or you want to tell me about your extreme anarchistic ideas or your extreme conservative trad wife, like now they say it's trad wife, but it was really, it's really patriarchal, like classic job distribution and in a patriarchal society of like rural job distribute, like job divisions, if you like. Anyway, if I'm interested, my dude, I will ask you. Don't come to me to catechize me, to proselytize me, to preach to me about it. And I will not do the same to you. And we can live and let live. And that's it.
That is I think that has always been the Drunkduck thing. But we don't mind people having those ideas.
There are some exceptions, I would say. At least I feel like there are. You are the emperor, so you.
Yeah, well, we're not going to have like out and out Nazi people.
That's not.
That's not
though. I mean, that is some really sick cats that we don't really want on the side. It's not really like Nazism is not an ideology, at least in my opinion. So.
Yeah, but like anti-Semitism
or
those kind of things, like
anti-Arabs, anti-Semitism, anti-black, anti-whatever. We don't like that. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're not accepting of any like extremist notions that are against other people, because that crosses the line into being a dick, because that's not just a political ideal. That becomes like, okay, that's offensive to my existence. I can't exist in your world. I'm not a part of, your philosophy, like alienates me, like, ultimate homophobic people who like, whatever. Yeah. So it's alienating someone's existence, and that's not tolerable. So we should wrap it up now. Thank you very much for listening to the formative Drunkduck.
Yeah. The growing pains, the Drunkduck tales.
All right.
Something.
The Drunkduck tales. That's the title.
Oh, wow.
Got it. Thanks, Tance.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.